Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is. It has been a little bit of time since my last solo podcast, and I've been wanting to connect with you all. And there is something I love stories. I love Instagram stories. Little reels are fun, but I'm excited for this phase of life to do a little bit more long form so that I can actually flush out some ideas and unpack some things that I'm thinking about, that I'm imagining you're thinking about. And the main goal, well, I've got lots of goals, but one of the main goals of this podcast is to save you some time on your journey. I spent about 22 years suffering with chronic health issues that only now can I see that there were shortcuts and there were tricks and tools that would have saved me a lot of time. So now that I've learned some things, I'd like to share them so that I can save you a little bit of time. So let's start today with some of the basics. The most basic, if you're tuning in, maybe you're on your walk, maybe you're cooking breakfast, maybe you're folding your laundry, maybe you're driving somewhere, maybe you're just watching this and you're staring at me, whatever you're doing. See if you can just unclench your belly. And let your jaw relax. Let the muscles around your eyes soften, maybe a yawn. Maybe roll out your shoulders. Because what I want to talk to you today about is how clenched and tight and rigid we become when we are living in a state of fear. When we are rushing through life, when we are hypervigilant and panicked and hijacked by worry and pressures and to-dos. It doesn't need to be that way. And when I think about why I got sick, why I spent 22 years of my life dealing with chronic fatigue, chronic digestive issues, insomnia, panic attacks, having all sorts of diagnoses layered on top of that. You can watch my YouTube video about my story if you'd like. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. You can live that way. And I think most people, maybe not most people, a lot of people are slogging through life. They don't feel great. Life feels like something to survive versus an adventure to experience that is filled with possibility and magic and connection and love and play and art and spontaneity. So many people get swallowed by the idea that it's okay to be miserable. That's kind of what we signed up for when we came here to have a human experience, but I would disagree. And I would say that is what got me sick. I trained myself to live in a constant state of fear and worry. I was always assuming the worst case scenario. I was afraid of everything. I would vividly imagine things falling apart, how terrible things would go. And I became an expert at living in a state of chronic fear. And I had no idea at the time that living in such a way is the perfect recipe to create chronic gut issues, to create a state of physiological mayhem that is the perfect breeding ground for parasites and SIBO and mitochondrial dysfunction and heavy metal toxicity and issues with mold and candida. Living in a state of chronic stress and imbalance and depletion basically invites these things to fester and take root. So when we're talking about chronic illness and health and wellness and healing in general, it's never just the protocol or the diet. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice if it were just about cleaning up your diet, doing the things, getting up, seeing the sunrise, staying hydrated, getting your exercise, avoiding those deodorants and those nonstick pans. That's part of it. And if you've followed my work for a while, yeah, that's important. We don't need to be wearing polyester underwear and spraying ourselves with carcinogenic perfume. But removing those and living a super clean lifestyle without cleaning up and training the mind is only going to get you so far. There's a quote from Marcus Aurelius that I always come back to, and I wrote it down so I don't botch it. He said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And to expand on that even more, our experience becomes tinged and stained with the quality of our thoughts. How we are perceiving a situation dictates how we experience it, how we perceive it, the story we tell about it. And most people, yes, maybe you included, no shame, no judgment. I lived there, so I'm an expert here. Or at least I feel like I lived there long enough to know. But I lived in such a state that my experience became sepia-toned, dark, scary. And now I know, in a way that almost feels so silly and overly obvious, that of course my body was getting sicker and sicker. Of course standard treatments and naturopathic treatments and dietary protocols did nothing, if anything made things worse, because I was constantly poisoning myself with my own thinking. And my nervous system was stuck, completely stuck in this horror movie that I was creating and perpetuating and feeding. I was crafting a horror story so that every aspect of my life, every symptom, every sensation, every encounter, every experience, every task felt overwhelming and awful. It doesn't have to be that way. And if you are someone that is very well aware that you tend to maybe gravitate towards more of a stressful way of being, maybe you're someone that does assume the worst case, you're someone with a lot of symptoms, you spend a lot of time thinking about your symptoms and worrying about your symptoms and assuming that they're only going to get worse, assuming that you're going to be sick forever and painting this vivid future story of how miserable your life is going to be. If you are someone, I'm so glad you're tuning in to this podcast, because let me tell you, if no one has told you yet, you get to be the one to totally change the course of your life starting right now. Fear tightens. Fear makes the body rigid. It makes everything scary, right? Everything. It blocks us from feeling the joy and the magic and the delight. It blocks us from seeing all the ways that the world is trying to help us and support us and delight us. So your job And my job, I guess, right now is to remind you that you can shift at any moment. And it doesn't matter how often you find yourself thinking about something scary or negative. Every single moment you find yourself there is actually the perfect time to practice shifting. Because if you're feeling a certain way that doesn't feel great, I'm just gonna make a guess that the way you're thinking about a situation, a symptom, your life, is fueling a feeling that is undesirable. So it's a matter of learning, gracefully learning, in a relaxed, peaceful, gentle, loving way, maybe even a curious way, to change the way you are thinking about something. And the way I like to think about this is if a thought feels tight and feels like it increases tension in the body, flip it around, the opposite thought, until you find a thought that brings you even 5% more relief. So it might sound like a repeating loop of, oh my gosh, my symptoms are so bad. This is going to be terrible in the future. I'm only going to get worse and worse from here on out. Pretty scary, right? I could flip that and make it sound like this. Things are pretty bad right now. And I wonder what my life would look like if things slowly and steadily improved. If, maybe in a nonlinear fashion, things gradually improved. I wonder what my life would look like if things started moving in a better direction. Do you feel the softening of things are only going to get worse from here on out to what if things are actually going to surprise me? What if things get better? What if? What if? And I still notice there are moments where my mind sneaks up and scares me. Ah! And I've learned to feel, to sense my body whenever my gut, for me, it's my gut. And oftentimes my jaw, but really my gut. And I think that is a big piece of why my gut has always been the most problematic. So when I notice my gut is clenching, I slow down and I pause. And I check in with what I'm thinking about and what I'm placing my attention on. Am I thinking scary thoughts? Okay, that's a choice. It might not feel like a choice because the grooves, the neural networks in our brain get so smooth. We get so skilled at practicing fear that it's kind of like we slip into it without even realizing it. We can learn to unhook from that fear spiral and learn a new rhythm, eventually creating deeper grooves in ways that elicit a relieving and relaxing response in the body. And that's how I tune in. If something tightens, okay, I think I'm probably lying to myself or creating a horror story. If something softens, if a thought feels better and brings me a little bit of relief, brings me a sense of hopefulness, a sense of optimism, a sense of possibility, a sense of excitement, if it motivates me, now I go in that direction. And it's self-perpetuating in a really beautiful way. The more I follow thoughts that feel expansive, that feel like they encourage me, the more likely I am to take action from that place, which then leads to more opportunities and more chance encounters and more creativity. And it has this beautiful snowball effect. And I'm not special. We are all very unique, but I'm not special. I spent long enough suffering and assuming I'd be sick for the rest of my life and vividly imagining myself sick and disabled for the rest of my life to get to the point where I realized, gosh, I don't want to live this way anymore. And it's definitely not helping my physical healing. Okay. If I can change the way I think, if I can change what I place my attention on, and it might alleviate some of these chronic symptoms that doctors haven't been able to figure out, okay, let me try it. I have nothing to lose. And that's why I want to talk to you more about this. Because I wish someone told me sooner, hey, Theresa, all of your symptoms are not in your head, but the voice in your head is definitely perpetuating and fueling your symptoms. And nervous system work has become pretty trendy. And I wouldn't say, just do the nervous system work and everything will fall into place, but it's a big piece of it. And I resisted that for the longest time. I would see these influencers talking about how all of their chronic symptoms went away in a week when they regulated their nervous system. That's great. And that's probably true for the people that experience that. But I know for me and maybe for you, the journey is a little bit longer. And there's beauty in that too. Sometimes certain strengths, wisdom, certain qualities only develop when we've been in an experience for quite some time to really learn the lesson we need to learn. And if you are only sick for a week, you might not learn certain skills. You might not be able to access certain depths of wisdom that develop because of the suffering, because of the length of the suffering. And I am not here to romanticize chronic illness. Gosh. But I wouldn't be the woman I am today without the 22 years I spent bloated and constipated and tired and sleep deprived and feeling like I had the flu, feeling like I was hungover every day of my life without even drinking. I wouldn't have the frame. I wouldn't have the inspiration and zest and gusto for life if not for that experience. So yes, I am grateful for it. And if you're not at the point where you're able to feel grateful for it, that's fine. But I will plant a little seed today that something about your experience, however undesirable it might feel right now, you will eventually get to the point where you look back and you say, whoa, that had to happen the way it did to help me grow into the person I was meant to become, to put me on the path that I am meant to walk. Part of your unique unfolding, part of your unique contribution is being shaped by what you are going through now. And it doesn't mean you need to stay in a place of suffering any longer than you want to. So let's check in. If a thought clenches and tightens you and scares you, play with that thought until you find something that brings you a little bit of relief. And it might be a what if. What if? Here's another example. Many of you might be also very skilled at assuming the worst case scenario. If we flip it, let's play around with, okay, well, what's the best case scenario? What if the best case scenario actually unfolds? Or for another piece of this practice, what's the most likely scenario? And we can even go back to the worst case scenario and check in and ask, well, okay, if the worst case scenario does unfold, can I handle it? I've survived everything in my life up until now. If the worst case scenario actually does unfold, can I handle it? Most likely. It might not be comfortable, but can you handle it? Yep. Absolutely. And I want you to think of times where you were assuming things would go terribly, suffering in advance. Isn't that funny? Suffering in advance. Suffering in our mind before anything has even happened. And then reality comes to fruition and everything is actually fine and things actually didn't fall apart. So you suffered unnecessarily. So maybe we can skip that. Whenever you find your mind suffering unnecessarily, can we skip that and just notice? And we don't have to be mean about it. We can say, whoopsie doopsie, my brain is doing that thing again. Let me gently guide my brain towards a way of thinking that actually is more conducive to living a beautiful, playful, whimsical, creative, expansive life. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Okay. If you are dyeing your soul dark brown and poopy baby barf tones, and you don't like them, what color do you want to stain or tint your soul today? Maybe a periwinkle, maybe a turquoise, maybe a yellow. When I ask people in sessions and in group workshops what colors they associate with joy and safety and ease and calm, most people say sunshine yellow or light blue. And how interesting that something as expansive and hopeful and limitless as the sky matches. Just something to notice. And let's take another moment to soften the belly. Soften the belly. Take a deep breath in. Hold at the top. Yawn, slowly exhale. Maybe roll out your shoulders. Because sometimes changing our thoughts, when we're scaring ourselves, when we're creating a horror story, sometimes changing our thoughts doesn't feel possible. We are so hijacked by stress. Our physiology is in chaos. So just thinking better might actually feel like it takes too much work. I get it. I've been there. As someone that used to have pretty severe panic attacks, to the point where I couldn't leave the house, was scared to drive, scared to fly, scared to do much of anything. Just changing my thoughts didn't feel like an option. That was, a couple tiers ahead of where I was. But breathing. When we breathe, when we inhale and engage the diaphragm and slowly exhale, and really let the belly soften. We are not here to suck in our belly. You may have learned that in middle school. We are unlearning that today. Because as we breathe and soften, that can be a way to signal safety. The fear center of the brain, the amygdala, quiets just a little bit, so that thinking a better feeling thought actually feels accessible. You don't have to try so hard. Because I don't want you to feel like you're going to just have to do nervous system regulation for the rest of your life, and your trauma is so severe and your chronic health issues are so severe that you're going to just need to spend your entire day healing. No, maybe initially, but no. The goal is to be living in such a way that you are so captivated by what is around you, the beauty around you, what you're excited about, your friendships, your relationships, the things that bring you joy, your hobbies, music, something little like a rose blooming or walking past a fig tree and tasting a fresh sun-ripened fig, the little delights, being in that state of appreciating, delighting, experiencing. Wow. Magic. Living in that state so that you don't have to try so hard to get to a better feeling place, because you're just in that state naturally. And I'll be honest, sometimes I wake up and I'm just not in the best mood. Sometimes I wake up and I'm just kind of, maybe I feel more serious, a little grumpier, a little darker. My vision's narrowed. I will intentionally look out. Another simple tool to engage a more parasympathetic response. I will look out as far as I can, take in the widest view that I possibly can. I will relax my body by breathing. And I will start collecting things that I'm grateful for, things that are going well in my life, things that are beautiful, things that are delightful, things that are going well in my friends' lives. To bolster myself up, to start flooding my body with better feelings, and then I start building up from there. So much so that now I'd say the majority of the time I wake up and my thoughts are already in a positive loop of, wow, I love the way my sheets feel. Wow, I'm so excited to record a podcast. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to make lunch today with that sourdough I just picked up. Ooh, I'm excited to call my best friend this evening when I go on a sunset walk. I'm excited. I feel lucky. That was not the case when I was 79 pounds and praying and begging to die. And the way I think now, going back to the fear and the panic just doesn't feel like an option, because the way I've learned to think now, the way I've trained my mind, is too good to let go of. So maybe something you can think about. If this were your last day, even if you still have symptoms, even if your life is not ideal, even if there are certain things in your life that you feel like are missing or lacking, if this were your last day, what is the energy you want to bring to this day? Do you want to be serious and complaining and negative, focusing on your symptoms, focusing on all the things that you need to do, the bills you need to pay, all the things that you wish you did differently, all the things that are stacking up? Or do you want to place your attention on bringing a playfulness to the day, a silliness, a peacefulness? What is the energy that you want to bring to your last day on earth? And I frame it that way because so often we think we've got all the time in the world. Once I'm healed, then I'll enjoy my life. Once these symptoms go away, then I'll enjoy my life. Once I have more money, then I'll relax. Once I find my dream partner, then I'll be happy. Once I live in the most beautiful house, then I'll feel satisfied. And we think we have so much time. And then we realize none of this is guaranteed. So if we snap out of the delusion that we have all the time in the world and we really check in, if this were my last day on this wild earth, what's the energy I want to bring to it? What's the story I want to tell? What's the mood? What's the flavor? And see what it feels like where you intentionally choose to relate and respond to life differently. And it might start by changing the way you think. It might start by changing the way you're breathing, to soften, to relax. Move in the direction of what brings you relief. The better you feel, the more likely you are to then take action, to move forward. Because this does require being an active participant in your life. Absolutely. It's not about laying down and just imagining yourself stepping into a dream life. I mean, visualizations are amazing, but taking action is also a big piece of this. And your action today might be, okay, if this were truly my last day on earth, how do I want to wash the dishes? Do I want to be super serious and rush? Or do I want to enjoy the temperature of the water and the sun coming through? Do I want to delight in the way the bubbles are catching little rainbows? You get to choose. You get to choose. And the more you practice choosing the better feeling thoughts, the more they stick and the better life starts to feel. So it's not about ordering another supplement or doing another protocol or finding another doctor or another program or whatever it is. It's a lot more simple. And it's available to you right now. So enjoy the rest of your day. If it were your last day, what kinds of thoughts would you like to be thinking? How do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? If this were your last day, how would you treat others? How would you talk to your loved ones? Who would you call? What would you do this evening? If it were your last day, would you be scrolling on Instagram or would you be talking on the phone with your favorite person? Would you be cooking a meal for your family while listening to your favorite songs? It's up to you. Juiciness. I took so many notes for this podcast. I think I've got 20 more podcasts just looking down at some of the things I didn't get to, but let me know in the comments how this resonated, how you would like to spend this day if it were your last, and I'll see you in the next show, I guess. We'll see what happens. Anyways, ta-ta for now. Have a beautiful day.